Some stories are so strange, they just have to be true. Imagine a town, swallowed by the earth not from an earthquake, but from a fire that started over 60 years ago and is still burning today. This isn't a legend or some spooky myth. It's the real story of Centralia, Pennsylvania, an American town erased from the map by an underground inferno that will probably outlive us all. So how does a small, tight-knit community just vanish? And what happens when the very ground beneath your feet becomes your greatest enemy? Back in 1962, a small fire in a landfill accidentally ignited a coal seam underneath Centralia, Pennsylvania. That fire is still going. It forced a town of over 1,000 people to abandon their lives, led to the demolition of almost every building, and will likely keep burning for another 250 years. This is the story of how a small American town was literally wiped off the map. Before the fire, the smoke, and the silence, Centralia was alive. Founded in the mid-1800s, it was a town built on a foundation of anthracite coal, the purest and hardest you can find. Like a lot of towns in this part of Pennsylvania, life revolved around the mines. The work was tough and dangerous, but it paid the bills. By 1890, Centralia was a bustling place, with a population that peaked at nearly 2,800 people. Its streets were lined with 7 churches, 5 hotels, almost 30 saloons, a bank, and 2 theaters. It was a town where families put down deep roots, where generations lived side by side, and its entire identity was forged in the dark, dusty tunnels that ran for miles right under their homes. The history here was rich and, sometimes, violent. This was the territory of the Molly Maguires, a secret society of Irish-American coal miners who fought back against the brutal working conditions forced on them by the mine owners in the 1870s. Their story is a grim, important chapter in American labor history, a testament to the life and death stakes of the industry that gave Centralia its reason for being. But as the 20th century moved on, the boom started to fade. The Great Depression and changing times after World War I led to strikes and less demand for coal. By the 1960s, most of the big mining companies had shut down. The population had shrunk to around 1,100 residents, a shadow of its former self, but still a proud community. The maze of abandoned mine tunnels beneath the town, however, was still there, a silent, sprawling network that was about to become the catalyst for Centralia's end. The end of Centralia started with something you'd never expect: spring cleaning. In May 1962, with Memorial Day coming up, the town council decided to tidy up the local landfill. They hired 5 volunteer firefighters to set the dump on fire, a pretty common way to get rid of trash back then, located in an old, abandoned strip mining pit. The plan was to let it burn down and then put it out. Simple. But this time was different. What the council and the firefighters didn't know was that the pit wasn't properly sealed. An opening connected it directly to the Buck Mountain coal seam, one of many rich veins in the unmapped labyrinth of mines beneath the town. The fire was never fully extinguished. It smoldered, crept through a gap in the pit wall, and set the anthracite coal on fire. At first, nobody knew. A coal seam fire isn't a big, roaring inferno you can see for miles. It's a slow, creeping disaster that moves underground. For weeks, and then months, people complained about nasty, foul-smelling smoke. Realizing their mistake, the borough council called in engineers. They tried everything: flushing the mines with water, pumping in a fire-retardant slurry, digging out the fire. Nothing worked. The fire was always one step ahead, finding new paths through the tunnels, fed by a nearly endless supply of coal and oxygen. By the time anyone really understood how big the problem was, it was far too late. The fire had become an unstoppable force. For nearly 20 years, life in Centralia went on, but under a strange and unsettling new reality. The fire was a constant, invisible neighbor. Depending on the wind, smoke, and a sweet-smelling, toxic gas, carbon monoxide, would seep from the ground. People watched their houseplants inexplicably die. Some residents started reporting chronic health issues. The ground itself began to show signs of the incredible heat below. In the Oddfellows Cemetery, near where the fire started, trees turned yellow and died as their roots were literally cooked. The pavement got warm to the touch. The first undeniable, major sign of the growing danger came in the late 1970s. A gas station owner named John Coddington was shocked to discover the temperature in his underground fuel tanks had hit 172 degrees Fahrenheit. He had no choice but to shut down and abandon his business as the fire crept closer. Then, It was Route 61's turn. The main highway connecting Centralia to the outside world began to steam, buckle, and crack. Huge fissures opened up in the asphalt, belching hot, sulfurous gas. State officials tried to patch it over and over, but the ground was just too unstable. Eventually, they gave up and closed a whole stretch of the highway, building a permanent detour. This abandoned road would later become an unlikely tourist spot known as the Graffiti Highway. Despite these scary signs, the community was torn. Many residents, whose families had been in Centralia for generations, refused to leave. They downplayed the danger, sometimes accusing the government of exaggerating the threat just to get their hands on the valuable coal under their homes. Others, fearing for their safety, demanded action. The town became a battleground, fracturing under the immense pressure of a slow-motion disaster. The moment that shattered any illusion of safety came on Valentine's Day, 1981. A 12-year-old boy named Todd Domboski was in his grandmother's backyard when the ground suddenly vanished beneath him. A sinkhole 4 feet wide and over 150 feet deep had opened up without any warning. As hot steam and a deadly plume of carbon monoxide billowed out of the hole, Todd desperately clung to a tree root. Luckily, his cousin was there and managed to pull him to safety just in time. The story went national. It was undeniable proof that the ground could collapse at any moment, swallowing a person, a car, or an entire house. The near death of a child was the turning point. It finally forced the federal government to take decisive action. The debate was no longer about if the town could be saved, but about how to get the people out. In 1983, Congress set aside over $42 million for a voluntary relocation program, offering to buy residents' homes at fair market value. That decision tore what was left of the community apart. Over the next few years, more than 1,000 people took the offer. As families moved out, demolition crews moved in. One by one, the homes, businesses, and landmarks of Centralia were torn down, leaving empty lots and streets that led nowhere. By 1990, only 63 residents remained. These holdouts were stubborn, arguing the fire was no threat to their side of town. But in 1992, the state of Pennsylvania invoked eminent domain, condemning all the remaining properties. The government now owned Centralia. The post office even discontinued the town's zip code, 17927, officially wiping it off the postal map. Visiting Centralia today is a surreal experience. It doesn't really look like a town anymore. It's mostly empty fields and new forest, cut through by a grid of paved streets. That grid is the only clue that over 500 buildings once stood here. It's a ghost town. Without the ghosts, the buildings themselves are gone. By 2020, just 5 residents remained. A 2013 legal settlement allowed the last few holdouts to live out their lives in their homes, after which the properties will be handed over to the state. Today, that number is estimated to be even smaller. One building stands as a prominent survivor, the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary Ukrainian Catholic Church. Perched on a hill, it was spared because it was built on solid rock, not over the mine network. It still holds weekly services, a lonely beacon of faith overlooking a town that has all but disappeared. And what about the famous Graffiti Highway? For decades, that cracked and abandoned piece of Route 61 became a counterculture landmark, covered in an ever-changing mural of colorful art. But in April 2020, the private owners of the land, citing safety and trespassing concerns, decided to end its reign. Thousands of tons of dirt were brought in, burying the highway and erasing its vibrant, chaotic legacy for good. The fire itself still burns. It spreads at a rate of about 75 feet a year and now covers an area of roughly 400 acres. Geologists estimate there's enough anthracite coal down there to fuel the fire for another 250 years. On cold or rainy days, you can still see faint wisps of steam rising from cracks in the ground, a quiet reminder of the intense heat that's raging just below the surface. The story of Centralia is a powerful lesson in how a single mistake can spiral into an irreversible catastrophe. It's a reminder of the awesome power of nature and the fragility of the places we call home. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next dive into the world's most incredible lost places. And let me know in the comments, what would you have done? Taken the buyout? Or stayed to fight for your home? Centralia wasn't destroyed by a hurricane. a flood, or a war. It was slowly and relentlessly consumed from within. It's a town that now exists more in memory and cautionary tales than in reality. The homes are gone, the people are scattered, and the streets lead to nowhere. All that's left is a grid of empty roads, a handful of defiant souls, and a fire that will keep burning long after the last person who ever called Centralia home is gone. It stands as a quiet, haunting monument to an incredible city that was literally erased from the map.